Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Mozambique, Madagascar and Malawi take stock of the fatalities and destruction caused by tropical storm Anna. More than a week of heavy rains have left dozens dead across southern Africa. Also, Egypt beats Ivory Coast 5-4 on penalties to move through to the quarterfinals at the Africa Cup of Nations. The Pharaohs will now be facing Morocco in the last 8 on Sunday. And Cameroonian football fans weren't the only ones keen on hosting the Africa Cup of Nations. Craftspeople of the country were also looking forward to the influx of visitors, but many say that they've been left disappointed at the turnout to craft markets. But first, over 47 people have died in Malawi, Mozambique and Madagascar because of torrential rains brought by Tropical Storm Anna. In Malawi, heavy floodings caused major power blackouts and cut off the country's main highway, which has made rescue efforts all the more difficult. Laurent Berstecker has more.
Mercy JALILOSI was crossing Malawi's Shire River when she felt her car get dragged by floodwater. Still out of breath, her eyes swollen by tears and exhaustion, she recounts her harrowing ordeal.
I just started swimming, but I did not know where I was heading. I tried to get hold of a tree along the way, but I felt I was being pulled down into the water. I had to swim for a long time before I found a pile of garbage to grab onto. I slept there until the morning. I could feel snakes around me.
After sweeping through Madagascar, Tropical Storm Anna made landfall in Mozambique and Malawi on Monday, wreaking havoc and destruction. In Malawi, the downpour caused the country's largest river to break its banks, leading to widespread electricity blackouts. Flash floods also cut off Malawi's main highway, raising fears thousands could still be trapped by the surging waters.
We are talking of Unsanje, we are talking of Chikwawa, Chirazulu, Palombe, Mulanje. All these areas have been affected. So the Tropical Anna has really created a very big challenge.
Authorities were still assessing the situation in Madagascar and Mozambique, where flooding and landslides killed dozens of people and left tens of thousands homeless. Experts say such tropical storms, which have frequently struck southern African countries in recent years, are becoming increasingly destructive as a result of climate change and rising sea levels.
Well, Ethiopia's cabinet suggested ending the country's 6-month state of emergency because of changes in the security situation regarding the war with Tigray. That's raged in the north for more than a year and has cost thousands of lives. The state of emergency was brought in November as Tigrayan forces moved closer to the capital, Addis Ababa. However, in late 2021, Tigrayan fighters retreated back to their home region. The Council of Ministers' proposal to drop the state of emergency now has to be approved by lawmakers. Rights groups say that thousands of ethnic Tigrayans have been detained under the sweeping powers it granted. The EU and the US have called for the immediate release of a Ugandan writer who was detained again just hours after a court ordered his bail release. Kakwenza Rukira-Bashija's lawyer says that instead of being let out, men in plain clothes swooped into prison and took him away to an unknown location. In 2021, Rukira-Bashiija was awarded the 2021 Pen Pinter Prize for an international writer of courage for his novel The Greedy Barbarian. It describes high-level corruption in a fictional country. His team claims that he's been tortured since his arrest in December for making unflattering remarks on Twitter about President Yoweri Museveni and his son. The organisers of the Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon have changed the venues for several upcoming games. The shifts are partly over poor pitch conditions at Douala's Japoma Stadium. A quarter-final and a semi-final set to be held there will now happen at the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium. It'll also host another of Sunday's quarter-finals, originally due to be held at the Olembe Stadium in Yaoundé. Now, that's where 8 people were killed in a stampede at the gates on Monday. Victims' families are still struggling to come to terms with their losses. Our team sent us this report.
Rosalie has been inconsolable since her husband's death. 65-year-old Moise Mbom, a retired civil servant, was one of 8 people killed in a stampede at the Olembe Stadium on January 24. The fatal crush happened as crowds tried to attend an Africa Cup of Nations match between Cameroon and Comoros. Rosalie is still in shock.
My husband was not only my husband, he was my boyfriend, my friend, my everything. He went to the stadium, of course, and we saw each other in the morning, but I didn't see him again because of the match.
Cameroonian authorities say that at least 38 people were injured. Some are in a serious condition. Many of those hurt are receiving free medical care at this hospital in Yaoundé, a few kilometers from the scene of the tragedy. Since their arrival, the hospital's director has kept a particularly close eye on their progress.
When they arrived, many had bruises. Some had been stepped on. I can say today that they're out of danger.
The worst may be behind him, but it will take time to fully heal and even longer to move past the memories of the chaos and pain at the gates of the Olembe Stadium.
Le ventre au sol, le dos est à l'air, je regarde les gens qui marchaient sur moi et j'étais étouffé.
48 hours after a tragedy that has shocked Cameroon, some have returned to the sporting complex to pay tribute to the victims. Moussa Njoya lost his 35-year-old disabled friend that day. He says that the tragedy could have been avoided.
Almost every time the Lions played in Yaoundé, she was at the stadium. It's a shock, especially since it seemed preventable.
Authorities have started investigations into responsibility for the stampede, and the Confederation of African Football has suspended the Olembe Stadium until further notice.
Well, Wednesday saw Egypt edge past Ivory Coast on penalties to reach the quarterfinals. Simon Harding was at the game.
Yes, Egypt take away the victory 1-0 on penalties. The 1 point awarded to the Pharaohs after they won a tense and dramatic shootout. Liverpool's Mo Salah scoring the winning spot kick after Manchester United's Eric Bailly had been denied by Gabaski 2 hits early in the third round of the penalties. It was, if truth be told, quite an anticlimactic game. A lot was expected of this Ivory Coast side, possibly with a favourites tag going into this last 16 round after beating defending champions Algeria in the group stage and knocking out the Phoenix. Then Egypt had shown some solid performances after losing 1-0 to Nigeria in their opening group game of the tournament, but they were also narrow victories against Guinea-Bissau and against Sudan. So the Elephants really came into this one with the wind backing them, and they failed to deliver. A very pedestrian performance by the Ivory Coast, a very incomprehensible performance by Patrice Baumel's men. For Carlos Queiroz and the Pharaohs, they did what they had to do, soaked up a lot of the pressure, didn't create too much, but took their chances when they had to. Trezeguet could have won it in the last minute of extra time. Salah came close as well. He was denied by Sangare, but there will be a lot of regrets in the Ivorian camp this evening.
Simon Harding there. Now, it wasn't just Cameroonian football fans who had been keen to see AFCON hosted on home soil. Craftsmen and women who've seen a difficult few years because of insecurity and the pandemic had been looking forward to the influx of visitors that the tournament usually brings. Our team sent us this report from Garoua, where Group D matches have been played.
We sell objects made from calabash horns.
Abdul tries to entice potential customers with his wares. Since the Africa Cup of Nations tournament began in Cameroon this month, he's been hoping on seeing a boost to his sales. On display are handmade calabashes, horns, keychains. He's counting on AFCON bringing in more tourists to the crafts market in Garoua, where he works.
We can earn 10,000, 5,000 or 2,000 CFA francs, depending on how many people visit the market. My goal in coming here is to make contacts and to make my products known throughout the world. Maybe I will find a good partner who's also doing what I do, but in another way. We could join forces to produce something special.
Because of the pandemic, the region has witnessed a drop in the number of visitors over the last 2 years. Africa's biggest sporting event usually draws crowds to more than just the arenas, and artisans were counting on more visitors' appetite for souvenirs. Therese is a potter. She doubled her production after investing nearly €500 into her business in the run-up to the event. But so far, she's been left disappointed.
Since the beginning of AFCON, I've sold a few pieces here and there, but there are not many visitors. I have invested about 300,000 CFA francs, and I hope that I'll get more during the tournament.
Across the market, thousands of skillfully made local products are on offer. This Nigerian supporter is looking for a uniquely Cameroonian piece.
I came to buy the handmade samaras, which are very different from ours. That's why I came here, to buy the best quality and take it home to Nigeria.
With less than 2 weeks to go until the end of the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations, the 200 artisans in this village are still hoping to offset some of the losses of a difficult few years by offering visitors mementos of their time in Cameroon during the momentous AFCON showdown.
That report by our team in Cameroon. That is, though, all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
France is famous for food, fashion, and when it comes to the winter months, skiing.
Well, France is considered one of the top destinations in the world when it comes to winter sports, les sports d'hiver, and it's a significant part of the country's tourism industry.
Ski culture, though, is about much more than the slopes, and this being France, a lot of that has to do with food.
But has skiing gotten too expensive, and how can resorts cope with climate change?
Join us as we slalom through the ins and outs of French skiing.
French Connections Plus, presented by Jeannie Godula and Florence Villemino.